welcome to Artist Marie Lowe Penciled Realism Tutorial. Now today what I want to show you is how to freehand a face. Now I know it can be difficult, and today I want to show you a method that could simplify the process. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Please do click like because it does help my channel. And to gain access to lots more content by me, lots more drawing content and tutorials and extended tutorials, please do join me on Patreon. The link is underneath my video. Do click on that and the full tutorial for this will be there too. So the first thing that I did was get the middle of the paper. I measured it up both sides and found the middle just to make sure I've got some sort of guide to keep the picture in the middle, the nose, the lips and all of that. So the next thing I wanted to do was find the chin, because looking at the picture, the chin was the most obvious part and it's like 1/3 of the way up. So I wanted to really look by eye and try and measure by looking at it whereabouts 1/3 of the paper is. So once I'd found that guide, I just checking it over, making sure it's in the right place. Then the next thing that I'm going to do by measuring by eye, I'm going to look at the reference picture and try to see what would be between the chin and the top of the paper. So the next thing I found that between the chin and the top of the reference picture, the most closest to the middle were the eyes. So the next thing that I chose to try to find was a line in the middle between the chin and the top of the paper to find whereabouts the eyes would be. So just by eye, trying to find the middle between where the chin is and the top of the paper is. Then just using my ruler just to get a straight line there as my guide, making sure that it's level by eye again and get that line down so you have some sort of guide. So now we started with the chin, and between the chin and the top of the paper we found the eyes. Now I want to go between the eyes and the chin and try to find whereabouts the nose is. If you can notice, the nose is almost in the middle, just slightly above the middle when I'm looking by eye. That's how it seems to me. So we're going to draw a line just slightly above the middle of the eyes and the chin. The next thing I need to do, which I should have done from before, was start marking what these lines mean, because after a while you're going to see all these lines and you're going to forget what they're there for. So I'm just writing the top of the eyes, above the iris, just the beginning of the eyelid. Then I'm writing the nose, the bottom of the nostrils or the sides of the nose. And now I'm putting here the chin. Now looking at this, I know I should have gone for the bottom lip. The bottom of the bottom lip is right in between the bottom of the nose and the chin. But I was complicating things in my mind and I ended up going for the middle of the mouth, which was just slightly above the middle of the nose and the chin. But once again, you're always still going to be able to find your guide, because between the middle of the mouth and the bottom of the nose, I was able to find the middle, which again was the top of the lips. Top lip, the bottom lip. Now the bottom lip is probably just about the same distance as the top lip from the middle. So I'm going to go around the same distance, maybe a tiny touch more. This is just by judging by eye, guys, remember that. So the next thing that I wanted to do was find the depth of the eye. Looking at the top lid that I have marked down already, I wanted to find out where the bottom lid of the eye was. So I decided to judge between the bottom of the nose and the top of the eye. And looking at the depth of the eye top to the eye bottom, it looked around 4 times that size all the way down to the nose. So I decided to mark what looked like 1/4 of that area. This is all judging with the eyes. You can always go back later, look it over. Once I start drawing the features, if I need to lower anything or make anything higher, I can still do that. This is just for a rough guide. So next I wanted to find the height of the sides of the nose. So looking at it all together, it looked to me as though it was the same kind of height as the eyes. So splitting it into 4 visually enabled me to figure out whereabouts I can put the sides of the nose. So the same height as the eyes, and then just imagine that there would be one line going through the middle and that would turn it into 4 quarters. So it's really all about measuring halves and quarters. I find it a lot easier to measure things off of another thing and then figure out whether it's halfway or 1/3 or 2/3, or that's kind of visually how I like to measure things. So next I decided that I was going to measure between the height of the eye from the bottom lid to the top lid going up to the bottom of the eyebrow. So I decided that it was around half the height of the eye. So again, visually just measure with the eye, just dab a little line down and start making judgments of whereabouts you think these things are. It's really all about the distance that you see, and once you get into the drawing process, if you see any mistakes, you can correct them. So the next thing that I want to do is find out the width of the features now. So a little trick that I figured out was to measure between the two eyes to start off, because the two eyes are what I draw first, and then find something else on the reference picture that is the same measurement. So I discovered that underneath the bottom of the nose, going down to the bottom of the bottom lip, is the same length downwards as it is width across between the two eyes. So I decided to measure between the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the lip and then make the same measurement between the two eyes. And that was how I found the width of in between the two eyes. So now I want to show you how simple it is to find the width of the nose. Now going down from the corners of the eyes, you will find that a lot of people have their nostrils, the sides of their nostrils, in line with the corner of their eyes or very close to it. But there are many exceptions to this rule. There are many people who you will find their nostrils are a lot wider. It's very rare, but you will find some are thinner as well, which will be when you kind of look at somebody and think their eyes are a little bit wide apart. So, I mean, everybody's facial features are different, but a majority of people tend to line up with the corner of the eye down to the sides of the nostril or close to it. So that was how I made the judgment. I checked between the eyes. I noticed the sides of the nose were a little bit wider than the line up going straight to the corners of the eye. So I just did a tiny, maybe 2 millimeters out. So now to find the width of the mouth and where the corners are, the way that I decided was I looked at where the corners of the eye were going down, which we did before, and then it was slightly over to where the sides of the nostrils are. Then if you look at the distance, it's almost 1.5 times the width of the corner of the eye going out to the corner of the nose. So when I decided to do the line going straight up from the corners of the mouth, I made sure that I looked at the distance between the width of the nostril going to the corner of the eye, and then I kind of did that distance and maybe a millimeter more. So I did 1.5 of that distance. Now to find the width of the eyes, I measured in between the two corners of the eye. Now with the eye here, I could do it the same width, but I'm aware that it just seems slightly smaller in width than the gap between the eyes, but usually the gap between the eyes is similar to the width of the eyes also. So I kind of did them a similar amount, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters smaller, but obviously when I draw the eye, I'll be adding some darker shadows around the corners of the eyes, so it's still going to reach the same width as in between the two corners of the eye. So here I'm just putting in a little marker of where the eyelid will be, and then also to where the bottom of the eyebrow will be. But there I made a mistake and I corrected it later, as I'd already done the top line as the bottom of the eyebrow. I'm sure I changed that at some point. I realized that the measurements were off, but again, distracted slightly, it happens. But once I'd done the eyelid, I was ready to jump in with the eye. But before we start drawing this eye, I want to show you one last thing, and that is to pay attention to the front corners of the eyes and the outside corner of the eyes. Sometimes the outside corner can be lower than the inside corners, and sometimes the inside corners are a lot lower and the outside corners go up. With these eyes, the front corner of the eyes was quite a bit lower, and it was almost in line, just slightly above the bottom of the eye. So I made sure to keep that in mind. I marked a little line for the outside corners and the inside corners just to help me with the guide for starting to draw the eye.